So,
Then calling to order the Diamond Lake School District 76 Committee of the Whole meeting. Roll call, please.
Armenta, Hale,
Here.
Helpman,
Here.
Quindella,
Here.
Kwan, here, Lozada,
here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We got the flag.
Oh.
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag,
Flag.
United States of
United States of
America,
America.
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for
for which it stands,
And
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
Okay, we will now take public comments on agenda items for this evening. Do we have any public comments? I see we have a couple attendees. So if you have a public comment, please go ahead and share that now. No. Okay, there being no public comments, then we will move on to presentations.
Okay, thank you. So we have a couple of presentations actually and celebrations that we want to share with you. The first one is a distance learning update, distance learning opportunity update. So we just finished distance learning last week, distance learning phase 3. So Mr. Hansen compiled some videos and pictures of what it kind of our phase 3 looked like at the end of kind of week 6 of doing this. And so we had a Teacher Institute Day on Friday. We started phase 4 of distance learning yesterday. We did a lot of updates as far as to our middle school schedule and the opportunities that students have. So again, we're always reviewing and reflecting, but this is just a nice compilation of some celebrations and what distance learning looks like, especially for those of you that may not have the firsthand experience as parents to see it. So Mr. Hansen, do you mind
I will.
presenting that for us?
There we go. There we go.
This is to all the teachers. Thank you for all the help and support you've done for our school, even though we've been in this quarantine. But thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That was great.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
So this is just an opportunity if the board has any questions for either myself or Dr. Drucker or any of the principals as far as how distance learning is going, maybe some of the changes for, going from phase 3 to phase 4, things that we've learned, some things that we've reviewed and reflected upon, what we're working on to strengthen it, and what we've done to kind of improve things that we needed to just tweak a little bit as far as student engagement and connection. So if you all have any questions, please feel free, or we can just give an update from DLS and then intermediate and middle school, whatever you prefer, Joy.
I think if you guys want to just give an update, and then if the board has questions, we'll just save that to kind of the end of the update.
Do you want to start, Julianne?
Sure, absolutely. I think things are going well. The reports that I'm getting both from families as well as from staff is we found our rhythm. We have a schedule going. The teachers are keeping track of attendance every day. We encourage the kids to do the attendance through the online method of collecting who's on, but we have little ones. So the teachers are spot on it. They know if they've missed, or if kids were on in the past and now we're not seeing them. So we have a system to communicate and to check in to make sure if someone has stepped away from the learning platform, we check in with them to make sure nothing has changed in the family, or if they need assistance. Huge thank you to Daisy for that. She's been a really great help to us on several families and reaching out to connect with them. We have adjusted our special schedule so that instead of having them all come at once, we have specials given twice a week to all classes, but in a smaller scale. We're having too many kids at a time and they all want to talk and they're excited in the specials arena. So we have the general education classes and the dual language classes separated, so everyone's doing specials. Recess is going much better. It took us a few days to try to make sure that we had the correct supervision and make sure everyone knew where to log on and how to log on. And we had a few staff members volunteer to take ownership of each grade level, so things are much more streamlined, and the teachers now have people in place that they can rely on. So overall, I think things are very, very positive. If you haven't had a chance to see Katie Levy's artwork challenge, that was really fun, where people have dressed up to imitate some of their favorite paintings. So that's been a really fun showcase to watch. So do you have any questions about what we're doing at Diamond Lake or anything specific to us? Okay, then Mr. Preble.
Right, thank you. Yeah, much the same to be reported. The last time we met for the board meeting, we were kind of going through some updates. We had switched to our current schedule, which is really working right now. A lot of the feedback that I'm getting is that the engagement is increasing because the students are very much aware of the consistent expectations, when to be on, what to expect. One of the things that we had started doing the last time we met was rotating the special schedule. Since that time, we've had to actually do a rotation within the rotation because, as Julianne was just mentioning, there were too many people on. So we've kind of shuffled that a little bit. We're getting better at that. We're still having some glitches here and there that we're trying to clean up, but I think after speaking with some of the staff today, I think we figured out how to do that. Nothing technical, just more on an organization piece and when and where to post the links for some of those meetings. But everything's been going well. We started our indoor recess with the Learning Associates this past week. It's been going pretty well, not heavily attended, but attended fairly well. As we move throughout that, there will be different themes, games, stories, things like that, and just a social interaction time, a supervised social interaction time for the students to be a part of. But it seems to be that, I think Julianne said it best, they're in a rhythm. Both teachers and the students seem to be in a rhythm right now, and so we're gonna continue with this footprint until anything else is needed. Mr. Cunningham.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Preble. So middle school, we made some pretty significant shifts going into phase 4. We went from a schedule where we had a DLO for every subject that changed daily to going to an AB schedule where students would have class period time scheduled with every teacher, periods 1 through 4 on A day and periods 5 through 9 on B day. And we did that for a number of reasons. One, we wanted to make sure students were engaged with all 8 of their subjects, and that we would be able to still maintain some of the 3-hour guidance in the 30-minute period design. Teachers, it gives teachers an opportunity to present lessons daily, and we kind of moved to the idea of you have expectations to be there at certain times of the day. I know last time I shared that we had students engaging at different hours of the day, and we were looking to really streamline that so they're getting that teacher contact, and we can continue to advance our curriculum. And we want to make sure we could focus on giving meaningful feedback to students. So after running that for 2 days, just to look at a couple data pieces, if I was going to compare Monday to Monday, so April 27th to May 4th, and then April 28th to May 5th, we've had at each grade level an average of a 230% increase in students accessing during school hours, 8:30 to 11:30. So that's been very successful to engage students. They've really shown they respond well to that expectation we give to have them on during that time. And so now the next piece we're discussing as a staff, my 2 favorite words right now are synchronous and asynchronous. They feel good to say, but they're very important concepts. And it's the idea of, we're looking at, since we've got students engaging in this sense, and we've got the spread over 2 days, that we're excited about the opportunities to continue to build in independent work, as well as what was in the DLO with the teacher work. So teachers are looking to experience that balance of increasing the rigor and choices and enrichment, while at the same time supporting students that what's in the DLO is what's appropriate for them. So it's been a major shift, and a number of staff are very excited over the last 2 days at the number of students they've been able to interact with and some of the activities and lessons and discussion they've been holding. So it's been very positive.
The only thing I would add for the middle school is, pardon me, what it did was it gave students more direction of where and how they should spend their time. When we left it up to kids and they had 8 classes to try to fit in the 3 hours, they took the path, a lot of kids took the path of least resistance and started taking classes they liked more or found interesting and just in the topic rather than the assignment, if you will. And on top of that, the children were struggling with, if I log into the office hours, I don't have time then to do my work, because they were coinciding. So this schedule seemed to allow students to have a better balance and workload approach. And we're seeing a much higher return rate on it, if you will. So I think it's in the best interest of the children right now to have that balance.
I'm wondering what kind of feedback you guys have gotten from parents and students, like regarding like challenges that they've been having with the distance learning opportunities, and kind of how you guys are getting that feedback.
Let me start. We've had mix of, especially when we initially switched platforms to have a more scheduled day, as opposed to just kind of stopping by when you're ready to. Some families were grateful initially, and other families were overwhelmed initially. And so either I personally called, or one of the teachers would call, or we would talk about who would respond, and contact that family directly and help them understand that we are here to respond to their individual needs. And if they need more assistance with prioritizing, we can help them do that. That these specials and some of the extracurricular activities are there for the families who are craving that structure, and their child is a little bit more independent. And for families who are trying to figure it out, both parents are working, 3 kids are on computers, how am I going to make this work? We've responded by just helping them to let us know what they need so that we can make sure they feel supported. So since we went to that personalized touch, I have not received any feedback in the last probably 2 weeks that is anything other than positive. So not to say that there aren't still some families who are feeling that level of being overwhelmed, but if they do, we would handle it the same way. We would just help them understand that if we can just do literacy and math and keep that as a focus, you know, we can do that. We've also tried to balance that need for direct instruction that we are giving our students right now with the need to work at 5 or 6 p.m. or whenever the parents are home. So we have that online schedule, and then we also have embedded into that learning activities that kids can do in independent time. So we are trying to make sure we're responsive to both ends of the spectrum in terms of what families expect this to look like.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Julianne said. I think ever since we went to the schedule that we have now, we've had a lot more positive feedback than challenge feedback. We over the past couple weeks, and I haven't really received anything this week as far as connectivity problems. We've helped some families, you know, get internet access. You know, I've had either dual language teachers or office staff acting as a third party to help translate between families and Comcast to, you know, get that set up and those types of things. For the most part, we are seeing an actual increase in consistent participation with our kids. You know, there's an occasional, you know, when we first started, you could put out the same product and we had families that were overwhelmed, we had families that were underwhelmed, so trying to find that balance. And as Julianne spoke to, you know, making sure everybody knows it's okay to individualize this thing where we need to. You know, we need to meet the kids where they are and the families where they're at. That's the most important thing. We know that this is not a one-size-fit-all, although when we first started, you know, that's exactly what we gave you. And I think just making those adjustments along the way have been a big help. In speaking with all the teams in the past week, you know, I go back to the comment earlier that Julianne said about that rhythm. Everybody seems to feel like they're in a rhythm. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be. And so when challenges do come up, they seem to be very minor and fixed very quickly.
Looking at the middle school level, I mentioned some of the things they were working on adjusting, and data and feedback informs a lot of that. We probably would have the 2 major forms of our feedback pieces we would have is either students were feeling a bit overwhelmed with the number of subjects they would have to navigate, as we mentioned, and then we would have the feedback that the work is not with having to get that whole subject done within a half an hour maybe was not the most rigorous curriculum that a student would interact with. So we kind of had a little bit of both, and so there's different learner profiles that are present in our school and different needs, and so a lot of this schedule that we're implementing is to really balance that. I know a number of teachers have moved to choice boards even this week to be able to offer some options and some depth of what students can work on and the feedback they can give with it. So those feedback pieces, including and then just building even more structured live time with teachers where they're delivering the content and students can discuss. That was already a feedback piece, which is why some adjustments had been made before. But that would be probably the 3 major pieces that have informed where we are right now. I'm not sure, Chris, if you have anything to add.
I'm sorry, I was muted. No, I don't have anything else to add. I feel we're saying the same things, just in different times.
And if I could just add, I think it was a lot heavier in the very beginning, but again, I think people have, you know, learned ways to just reach out to specific teachers or the principals. But we were getting some information on the on the website if you had any feedback people would just directly email, if they had questions or needed clarifications. So I think that was more heavily used probably in the first 2 to 3 weeks of DLO. And we've seen definitely a decline in that, which I think is a good thing, because I think there's more interaction between staff and principals and family members.
How about the feedback from the staff? How are they feeling about the way things are going? Are there any additional supports that they're asking for? What are some of the things, among the changes that we've made, are some of those in response to staff requests for different structures or supports?
I know at Diamond Lake School, I had one teacher call me again initially when we changed the platform. Kids, cats. When we initially changed the platform, I had one teacher with 3 young children, and she called and she was quite overwhelmed because her children are school aged. And it was basically the same response. What do we need to do to structure? And when I had initially put out some research on why schedules are important and why that schedules bring down anxiety. And I did that with the staff. And so I did help her through that. And then I touched base with her twice after that to see if things had improved. I think that adding the recess was a really strong thing to do for our learning associates. They're such an important part of our staff, and they were pretty lost in terms of what role they were supposed to play and how could they help, but feeling like they should be doing more. And this is something that concrete that I'm so proud of them that they've been able to really take over. The majority of staff members have reported they appreciate having that schedule, and they feel like they're making a difference at this point, that they are truly teaching and not just, putting stuff up, that they are seeing their students grow and their students learn. So overall for Diamond Lake, I have had the majority of responses from staff have been positive at this point. So Kurt, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, at the intermediate school, I think, I keep going back. We've had the schedule going for a few weeks now, but when we first started the new schedule, that, you're changing something. We're already in this world of new, and we're trying to figure it out. And we get something going and we change it on them. And that causes some anxiety and for good reason. But I think once we got used to the schedule, I had staff comment that they were able to schedule times, if their spouse is working from home and with the kids and everything, they were able to manage that better because it was more predictable when we were going to be doing set activities. So they were able to plan that. And so, and I do much of the same thing at home, with my wife. Is okay. I look at my calendar and we kind of, where we can, we schedule things around each other, and hope everything falls during nap time. But that doesn't always happen. So just having that consistency has been the biggest thing to kind of boost up the staff and get everybody a little bit more calm, because every single one of them wants to provide a lesson. They want to be able to provide a meaningful activity. And they know that it's very difficult to do that, when it's just kind of, okay, we'll do it. We're going to throw spaghetti at the wall and see when it sticks. Now that it's scheduled and they can structure their day around it, it's much easier for everybody.
Yeah, our staff share a lot of the same apprehensions that Kurt and Julianne have described. The staff were very interested in looking at something like an A/B model, and we had started some of those discussions a couple weeks ago with the thought of being able to break up the work so students would be able to spend some quality time in each subject. And so that was already on the table, but once we talked about going to just a very kind of a, not using the word required, but expectation of using a class bell schedule, if you will, that we're using. Teachers were a little concerned that not all students will be able to access that, considering that many of our students were accessing the work in the afternoon into the evening. Now walking through it and meeting with the leadership team today, there was a number of teachers that were that had some happy tears of what they were able to do with students, and to see the amount that have responded or engaged has been an encouraging piece. So we've been able to walk through that element, and we've been encouraged to see the students interact. So, and we've had some great conversations with staff about some of those things you logistically problem solve with your own family, and it's been productive.
I would only add to that, because many of our teachers are juggling a variety of different things at home on top of being professional, being a spouse, being a parent, taking care of elderly, whatever they have to do. The biggest thing is we don't want to keep changing our schedules. And we need to write it out a little longer, at least phase 4 and phase 5, the way we're doing it, so that we can get some good hard data, as they know that there's the potential of having to deliver curriculum in a similar fashion in years to come, or at least in the next school year at some point. And so if you're just bouncing every couple weeks, changing, you don't get any rhythm like Kurt was talking about. And it's very important that the teachers have that. And that way they can tend to their professional obligations, but also their personal obligations in a very balanced approach. And I think they would appreciate that we maintain that for them.
I don't know if you can see the questions, but Mrs. Carmichael's a participant in the meeting, and she responded, at the middle school, the new structure has been incredibly successful. It gave the students a schedule, and the increase in students attending all classes was seen as positive. So that's what she just commented on in the meeting.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Mrs. Carmichael, for sharing that.
I don't know, Steve, did you want to add anything?
You know, just kind of piggybacking off what Mr. Williford was just mentioning, I'd say too that when you know, this all happened or began back in March, we got specific guidelines from the state, and some of those obviously were focusing on the health and well-being of our kids primarily, and so we began our process with that as a goal in mind. We put together a framework for our DLOs, and then since then, I think we've just sort of iterated like any other organization would do. We're going through the sort of trial and error phase of improvement, just like we continuously do every year as an organization. So, you know, I appreciate all the effort, obviously, that principals are putting in to adjust schedules through these phases. I appreciate the flexibility of the teachers to have to roll with the punches. But I would also say I think there needs to be added a little grace in this entire thing, that it is an iterative process, and we were not positioned to function or operate as a public school in this manner. So I think it's important for us, like I said, to give ourselves a little grace as we move through the different versions of our DLOs, and also just know we're all doing the best for our kiddos. We're wanting to make the schedules more engaging. We're wanting to provide you know, additional resources for kids. We're wanting to make sure they have an opportunity to see their friends and engage in learning experiences. You know, to kind of summarize or just kind of piggyback what all the principals are saying, I'm proud of the hard work, but I'm also open to growth and improvement as necessary.
And if I can just end with, the principals are, I echo what Steve's saying. I think the principals are doing a great job leading and working with staff and dialoguing with them, and the staff is so responsive as far as what they can do to connect and engage more with kids and making sure that they're safe and engaged and interested, but also participating. Yeah, we are also meeting with them. I think I shared with you at our last meeting, we meet with them on a regular basis. So whether that's, you know, weekly team meetings or weekly BLT meetings. So I think we get some authentic feedback from just, you know, what's going really well, what do we need to work on, what do we need to change, what do we need to strengthen. So I think we're just constantly reviewing and reflecting. And then I think you all know that yesterday we all went out, you know, and put signs up, and I had the opportunity to actually talk to all, you know, 13 people on my list. And, you know, I stopped and just said, how are things going? And everybody seems to be they're ready to get back. They miss us. They miss their kids, but I think they're just really positive with how things are going and how responsive. I just think the kids have been, and just the DLT and the board has been so supportive. So I think that they're overall pretty positive in the fact that they're locked in their house, but they were really happy, I think, just to A, be appreciated, but B, that it's going really well and they're able to connect with kids. And I think that's the most important thing that everybody wants.
That's great. Does anyone have any other questions?
Just a couple of quick comments. Certainly, I want to recognize what you guys have been talking about, the fact that this has been an incredible team effort. Really appreciate the perseverance, the adaptability, the flexibility that all of you, including the teachers, have shown. The support, that's incredible. Being able to support each other in this time of newness that we're going through, and being able to recognize the efforts that we're doing, the convergence that you guys are talking about, pulling together and assessing where you are, what you need to do better, and moving forward, and all in the name of the progress of the effort to instruct our kids. That's just incredible. It's very obvious and really commendable. I certainly want to be able to, I think a couple of you mentioned the fact that you've been able to somehow increase the level of participation and engagement. And at some point, it'd be great to translate that into actual numbers. But as long as we know that it's increasing, you know, we can deal with the numbers later if we have to at some point for the sake of the, you know, state reporting or anything else that we may have to do. I think one of you mentioned phase 4, phase 5. I've been thinking that at some point it'd be great, and I know you guys are probably working on it, to understand what happens in phase 5 after phase 5. And a couple of things that come to mind are, you know, how do we do a year-end assessment of our students? Graduation, very important, and summer school, things like that, that will play a role in somehow extending the overall footprint of our education to these students. And one more thought about that is, since all the schools, whether it's middle schools and high schools, are all in the same boat, and we have great relationships with Mundelein High School and Stevenson, obviously everyone's going to want to look at our seniors and determine, are they ready for the next stage? And so that's a thought that, you know, that's a discussion that I'd like to have at some point, just to see how we integrate that and make it adaptable. I'm sure they're willing to understand the situation, because it affects them, and how we're going to manage that transition of our students. But overall, I really want to give you guys double A's for the great effort and everything that you guys have done, and the visuals behind it. It's just incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just, you know, Mr. Lozada, we are actually in the process right now of just, you know, we've met already about graduation and how we kind of want to implement that going forward. You know, we're sticking with the same date. We're going to do something a little special for the kids, and virtually we're partnering with the PTO and doing some type of a celebration for them, whether it's, you know, doing a parade or going to their houses and putting up signs, but we are partnering with the PTO to do something collaborative. And then next week, the DLT is meeting to talk about what does the year-round look like, what does the summer look like, what does the fall look like, and just getting some big picture ideas and working out the details as they come, not only from a state level, but from, you know, what the governor decides to do.
Can I add, Bhavna, to that, in working with both Stevenson and Mundelein, Stevenson is reaching out to us to get some anecdotal survey information to determine what learning targets we may have missed in third trimester, so that they have an understanding of where our students are coming in. So their department heads have reached out to us and some of our teachers. And then on the Mundelein side, I'm working closely with Stacy Gorman, who's their curriculum director. Actually, I have a meeting with her in the morning where we're looking at some of the math and ELA adjustments that they're going to probably have to do, in terms of recognizing that, you know, both Fremont 75 and us have basically lost a third trimester in a typical school year. So I just wanted you to be aware that some of those conversations are taking place with the feeder schools and how to sort of address those gaps.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys are starting the conversations within the district too, especially, well, I guess at all grade levels, about what are those potential discrepancies as the students staying in our district move from one grade level to the next, and just building in time as we approach next year for staff to have those types of articulations.
Yeah, Dave, for the last several weeks, part of our looking ahead portion of our DLT meetings is talking about participation, equity, and engagement, and taking a look at when we start the year, how we need to appropriately assess those students to find out their current reality, and then offer ourselves a bit of flexibility to adapt to the fact that some of those students may not have been in school for several months. So we're taking a look, like I said, at participation, engagement, and equity, and then also putting together a flexible framework to sort of address that next year. My anticipation is that we're probably going to need to prioritize some things from a curricular standpoint, potentially like some cross-curricular focus in terms of reading and reading and social studies, and potentially say science and math, to begin to address some of what we are just sort of considering now, the gaps of having missed third trimester. So yes, those things are very much on our radar, very much on our weekly DLT discussions. And we are thinking ahead to summer school, to the future of next school year, how it will open, either virtually or in person. And so those things are without a doubt on our radar.
Does anyone have any other questions? No? Okay. Bhavna, I think, is there a second presentation?
Yep, so real quickly, just based on our activities yesterday, we started staff appreciation. I know Mr. Hauptman represented the board and helped us delivered 130 signs to our staff members and our learning associates, or certified staff members and our learning associates. So each one of the DLT members and Mr. Hauptman and Mrs. Crenshaw from PTO. So Mr. Hanson, would you just like to share that presentation? And like I said, it was very well received. And the article at the end, you'll see that we were celebrated in the Daily Herald too. So again, it was one of the highlights of my past 44 days. So we talked about it at DLT. It was a lot of fun.
Video right now.
I loved everybody's sweatpants and their slippers, and I forgave them, as you know, of course, when I came to the door, they're like, oh my God, I'm wearing my sweatpants and my slippers. But I loved it. And what I loved more is that so many of them had on their District 76 spirit wear. I thought that was great because they were not expecting us. So it was really nice.
That was great. What a good surprise.
That was great.
Social media, every teacher was just tweeting nonstop. And we had to get the signs out as quick as possible because word was getting out.
Yeah, it was great. So thank you, Mr. Hauptman, for representing the board, and thanks to the board for your support on this too.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that. It's nice that we can do something tangible to show teachers and the community too, how much we appreciate all of them and their hard work.
That was a nice gesture. And that's all for presentations this evening.
Okay. Then we will move on to our business agenda. We only have one item for action this evening, so the rest of the items are just for discussion. The first item, as usual, is the omnibus vote agenda. The second item is the school treasurer appointment, which we do annually, and the bond, and a review of that. The next item is the board 2021 calendar. So I don't know if we want to talk through that at all, or not. It looks, very standard compared to what we've always had in the past. So if anyone has any questions or sees any conflicts before we vote on that at our next meeting, please let us know or bring them up now.
If I can, Joy, if I can just add, I'm sorry, I'm going to just pull it up real quick.
No, that's fine.
There's just, usually we stick with the first and third Tuesday of each month, with the exception of July, December, and January, where we only have one meeting. So with August, because of school starting, we're hoping in person on August 18th. We moved to the 25th, which is the last Tuesday, just because there's so much going on that week. And then, so if anybody sees a conflict with that, please let me know. And then I know the following week, it's the Tuesday right before Labor Day, or the week before. So if you feel like that's too close together, please just share feedback. So if you would just review it and let us know.
No, that's great. Thank you for pointing those things out. Okay, then the next item is a personnel item. I don't think we really discussed this at the last meeting. So Bob, I don't know if you have anything you want to talk to us about before we move on to a vote.
Sure. I know we've talked just a couple times, and I've had some lengthy discussions with Joy, and then we talked, especially after, I think in general, of just having that special ed audit done at the very beginning of the year, or in the fall, I should say, and then getting the results back of what are areas of strength and what areas do we need to kind of grow and improve in. And definitely it was just the consistency piece, throughout the district of what we need to be doing pre-K through 8. Our communication as far as with team leaders, as well as with the leadership team, making sure that our practices and policies are aligned when it comes to special ed, continuing our relationship and to grow with CEDAL. And I know there was a lot of challenges in the very beginning of the year with CEDAL and what they were kind of going through. So I know Dr. Fredericks was pulled in a lot of different directions, and another primary role is to be the principal of Diamond Lake School. And so with all the change and the transition and the reorganization of the district, getting the results back from the audit, one of the things that we thought would be a really nice reorganization would be to add a special services coordinator. And I think now more than ever, especially with what has happened, this position is going to be critical as far as overseeing some of the social emotional learning standards and making sure that we have a curriculum and a program. So that's just part of their job description. But again, I think making things consistent district-wide, working with the district leadership team, working with the special ed lead teachers, looking at professional development, looking at what we're doing as far as IEPs, the curriculum, the programming, how we're transitioning our 8th graders into high school, and just making sure that we have just a system-wide process and procedures, and to have someone solely dedicated to that, where that's their primary role, I think is something that's critical, and I think it's something that's needed, especially with all the change that's happened within our district. So I'm proposing that this, I know we talked about this position, to go ahead and post it, and through the interviews of the assistant principal, Mr. Blake Dole, who's the candidate that we're recommending tonight, came as one of our top candidates for the out as our assistant principal, and also had a special ed background. So we wanted to make sure that the assistant principal was hired and secured first, and then if we had some strong candidates that came out of that, kind of look at them for a second round of special services coordinator. And so we did a completely different interview process and cycle for that as well. And as you can see from my memo, that we had all the principals meet the candidates, and again, Blake rose to the top and came very highly recommended from his references. As you can see and read in our memo of just the positive and strong feedback that we got. And I just think that he would be a great asset, not only to our district, but to our team, and definitely for our students. And I think the word that comes out that really stuck out to me when we were discussing his references is just that he's just such a huge special ed advocate. And so I think we definitely need that to complement our district, our kids, our community, and our team. So I'd like to recommend him for that position. And I think he's participating. So I wish you guys could see him. So you could put a name with a face, but if there's anything else that I know that if Steve, you'd like to add, or any of the principals who met him.
I'd just echo what you were mentioning there, Dr. Shermer Lewis, and that not only did he rise to the top in the interview process, just a really strong, viable candidate. His references and the people he has worked with have really spoken very, very highly of him. And it was just nice to meet him and to get to know him. He went through a pretty extensive interview process, having gone through both the assistant principal and then the SSC position. So I think we've gotten to know Blake pretty well, and his references just absolutely confirmed what a hardworking guy he is, with what has been described by many of them as just an incredible quiet strength. And so there was this common theme among his references that I thought was just really powerful that people were sharing. So I just want to share that.
Thank you. Did anyone have any other comments, or do any of the board members have any questions? No? Okay, then we move on to vote. Be it resolved, the Diamond Lake 76 Board of Education accepts and approves the personnel items as depicted on the agenda. We have one new hire, as we just discussed, and one leave of absence. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Lozada,
Yes.
Candela,
Yes.
Armenta, Hale,
Yes.
Houtman,
Yes.
Kwan, yes, Sullivan.
Yes.
Fantastic. So congratulations, Mr. Dole. And that concludes our business agenda for this evening. We will now move on to board discussion. And it looks like we have the job description for the community liaison.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm just pulling it up here.
Sure.
So in your packet, this is something that we've collectively put together, is a position for community liaison. And I know when I first arrived to the district 5 years ago, there was some type of position similar to this, and I believe it was called the family liaison, where Mr. Delpara had that role and worked very closely with the high school and a lot of the students and the staff and their families, to just kind of be that support for them as they transition from home and school. And so we reorganized that position, and we've had some student support coordinators with, Mrs. Zeman, and then we had an assistant principal a couple years ago. And so we've kind of re-looked at things of just how we can kind of give that extra support to students academically as well as non-academically. And I think what we've seen in the past few months where our students aren't able to come to school and get that support is just to kind of be the liaison between home and school. And especially if this does, the distance learning goes on longer and we are away from that physical connection, for our students are from us or from the school structure. We just need them to feel safe. We need to know that their well-being is taken care of, that they have their basic needs met, and then also just be a resource for our families who may not know how to navigate, maybe the kids coming back into school. Are they safe? Are they healthy? What are we doing for it? Are they coming in? And I know that that's what we spent the first couple of weeks doing with distance learning, is just making sure that kids were checking in, and that if they weren't checked in, what was going on, and then doing just a lot of outreach and phone calls. And I think, as Dr. Fredericks mentioned earlier, that when families come in and if English isn't their first language and they have some questions, I know that, we reached out to some of our office staff as well as to Daisy to kind of be that connection and that liaison. And I feel like the longer this goes on, the gap may increase. regression may continue to happen, and we just need to make, our kids in our community feel safe that it's, okay to come back to school. These are the things that we're doing. These are the resources that are available. And there's just a lot of, partnerships as far as what the community is doing is getting, basic needs and food resources, as well as what the high school is doing in our partnership with them. And I think this person, as you can see, would just be a real asset to our district as far as supporting our families, making sure that they're supported, reaching out to them, doing home visits, just a much needed outreach position. And like I said, this was kind of collectively put together with some of the work that Daisy has done this past few years with the Bilingual Parent Advisory Council, with her work with Dare to Dream, and the students did that. And I know you saw that presentation earlier this year. But then just kind of connecting all those pieces together and having, one unified position where we can just strengthen all the outreach and resources that we're providing to our families, and then making sure that they transition from, the distance learning opportunities that we're at right now through summer and then back into the fall. And this, as we all know, we've been reading the news, is this going to come back again? What is that going to look like? And so I just feel like this person would be critical to our district to support families, especially those families with severe needs.
So a couple of questions here, and I like this idea. I think this is would be a great support for our families, our students, our community. As I look at the responsibilities here and all of the things that you just said, this seems like a big and important job, and we're not mentioning any. It does say it's classified staff would be taking this position, and there's no mention of compensation here. I mean, this seems like a lot of responsibility. It seems like, this is a position that we want to make sure we have a highly qualified person who is able to carry out all of those responsibilities. What other qualifications, are going to be needed here, and how are we going to attract someone who's going to be able to take on the big commitment that this is? I don't know if I'm asking my question the right way here.
No, I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate maybe what you're looking for, but we've talked to the high school who has a very similar position. That person is overseeing 120's activities. It's a little bit more engaged with College of Lake County and doing more parent education pieces. So it would look a little bit different than what we have, or what we'd like to see in District 76. But it is a classified position, but it's a different. It is not a learning associate or a paraprofessional. It is. It would be a full-time person on staff, and they're anywhere from the high 40s to the low 50s. So I think it's going to be commensurate with experience and what they come in. So if we do post this and someone comes in and says, "Oh, I've been doing this for this community or this school district or this agency," and they find this position attractive, I think we'll have to look to see what backgrounds they come back with, what is their current salary, and then just kind of do some research of what other people in this similar position are paying. So like I said, right now the high school is, kind of in the low 50s range.
Yeah, and I may be reading more into this than the words that are on the page, but I mean, it sounds like we're asking for someone to be a whole lot of different things. A social worker, a communications expert, somebody who's well versed in maybe even like career education, and there just seems like there's a lot of experiences and a lot of background that would be very, very valuable to a position like this. And I was just wondering out loud how just how we hope to get all of those things wrapped into one package.
I know that's our hope. I think I agree with you. I think this person's going to have a lot on their plate as far as social worker and maybe health services and community services. But I think it's making that connection, I think initially with families and students, finding out where their needs are, and then being kind of the liaison from home and school and being able to connect with principals. Here's what I think this student or this family needs. Can you connect this this family with a social worker? Can you connect this family with an outside agency? Do they need special ed services? Do they need language support services? Whatever that may be, I feel like that person is kind of the first step into our schools, and then being able to connect our school resources with what those family needs are, what the student needs are, and vice versa with the community. So if they call us and they may be doing fine in school or have everything set up, let's just see, as far as support services in school, but yet they need some community resources, this person would be able to connect them with the correct community resources too. So it's not, I don't think, solving the problems or doing it for them. It's more connecting them, I think, and outreach to the school and to the community resources that they may need. And providing a safe connection to do so. I think right now some of our families don't feel comfortable maybe calling the school, not knowing what to say or how to say it or what to ask for. And I think somebody who has some connection into the community and has connections with resources, as well as knowing what our district can provide, can kind of mesh those two together.
Yeah, that helps me wrap my brain around it a little bit better. Thank you.
Sure.
Bob, now, do you have any candidates in mind, or any particular individual or individuals that you've seen that would fit into this position?
Well, of course.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, I mean, we do definitely. And I think that, like I said, just our partnership, even with the high school, they're able to provide us, with some good connections too, but yes.
No, I agree. This is an invaluable position, even from my years back, some years ago, on the board. I remember Mr. Para, and he tried to do as best as he could, extending himself. But given the new era that we're in, and the challenges that we have, certainly this position is going to complement, supplement all the efforts that we're doing, and extend us to areas that will really bring more students back, especially in in the current situation that we're in, and bridge so many gaps that we have. So yeah, I commend you. I'm all for supporting this opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions? No? Okay, I think we lost Mrs. Kwan. Oh, it looks like she's back. Okay, moving on. We had no Freedom of Information requests. Notices and communications, we have the updated Board of Ed calendar for this year. And then I see there was an article in the Daily Herald about the old music factory now becoming a public park and working towards putting part of that land for flood relief in Mundelein, and that of course is obviously very close to Fairhaven. And then we have the ISBE annual LEA determination. I don't know, Bhavna, if you had anything you wanted to add about that.
I think this is just a technical thing that when they review our paperwork and our grants, that we've met all the requirements. So it was more of just an FYI, especially because we've highlighted so much of special ed this year. I just wanted you all to know that we have met the requirements through the State Board of Ed.
Great. Okay, that concludes notices and communications. Moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. Do we have any further public comments? If we do, please feel free to type in the Q&A, or I think you can raise your hand. Okay. I don't see anything. So we will move on to others. And under others is the article in the Daily Herald that talks about the teacher appreciation signs that Bhavna mentioned earlier, which is, it's great to see the Herald recognize that and to talk about our teachers in our district. So thank you all again for doing that. And also, you know, obviously thank you to our teachers. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. We know it's a very different experience this year than in the past. We're not able to have lunches or breakfasts or have the kids there in person. So we hope all of you realize how much you really are appreciated and how much we value you and how much the students really are impacted every single day by everything you do. So thank you. And then it looks like we just have health insurance renewal left under others.
Yeah, I'll touch on that real quick. So I held the insurance committee meeting today. We received a renewal back from our from Blue Cross Blue Shield in collaboration with Deployant, who's our third-party administrator. And the reason we put it on this agenda today is because we're going to be requesting approval and action at the 19th, May 19th meeting. We need to have these approved by the end of May in order to have a renewal in time for July 1st. So there was a little bit of a tighter time window this time around based on the virus. Blue Cross is take a long time to get back to us. So overall, everything was very favorable for Diamond Lake this year. We had very low claims history. We initially had a 0% renewal, so meaning our fixed costs were not going up, and the cost of Blue Cross Blue Shield were not going up, which is pretty amazing. It's one of the only times it's happened. We're going to be still recommending a 3% increase, and that's in order to build up our reserves. Teachers are getting an 8% increase as per the negotiated agreement. So either way, districts building up their reserves a little bit more, teachers are getting a little cheaper insurance. So it's kind of a win-win for both of us. So I'll have a memo for approval at the 19th meeting. This is mostly just to give you a heads up and notify you this tighter time window we have.
Okay, great, thank you. And that is it for tonight. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
Joy, can I add one
Yep.
more thing? I'm sorry. I
Yeah, of
just
course.
want to comment, and I'm sorry, just want to mention, Daisy was able to attend with this Saturday a food distribution program that Mundelein High School and district
great.
partnered with. So Daisy, would you just take a couple minutes to speak about that?
Yeah. So this past Saturday, I kind of just invited myself to go to the food distribution to see what work D75 and 120 has been doing. And this kind of just goes to piggyback off of what everyone was saying earlier about teachers just going above and beyond their instructional time and really meeting the social emotional needs of our students and what their parents are going through. We were able to identify from District 76, 15 families and invite them. And that was within a time span of like 2 weeks. So I think it's good. And I kind of want to work more on that. But we were able to identify them, invite them to come on Saturday. We were able to serve approximately 150 food boxes. It was very well organized. And then another thing, I know that our PTO, on top of our own food service program that we have, Mondays and Wednesdays that Eric's been working on, and Kim and Dominic, I think it's really big team effort. Our PTO helped out and donated some gift cards. So along with that, those identified families, they were helping to distribute those gift cards for families in need. And again, our teachers going above and beyond their instructional time and, letting us know what students, their families need help. So that happened on Saturday. And then this Saturday, there is another event that Pastor Thomas with the chapel is organizing at the high school. And that's, they're providing 250 food boxes for free, no questions asked, no appointment. It's first come, first serve from 9 to 10:30. So I'll be working on getting that flyer out to some of our families, and that'll be this Saturday. And I know that we are also planning for a June event at the West Oak location. They're asking, if we can host something. So The talk actually just started today, so just, talk to Dr. Sharma Lewis and Eric Rogers about it today. Nobody's really going to be in the building, but it's just kind of us hosting a food distribution similar to what they're doing on Saturday. But I can definitely follow up about details on that once it's finalized. But yeah, just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Daisy.
Good. Well, on that good note, can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Candela,
Yes.
Lozada,
Yes.
Armenta, Hale,
Yes.
Hauptman,
Yes.
Kwan, yes, Sullivan.
Did you get all the votes?
I didn't hear Nicole. Nicole, did you say yes?
She's frozen.
I think she's
Okay.
frozen,
Okay. We'll take that as a yes.
yeah. Does it have to be unanimous or is it majority?
I think we're okay.
Oh, is she coming back?
Yes.
Nicole, do you agree to adjourn?
Great.
Yes. Okay.
Good. Now it's unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.